It all started like any other regular afternoon. I was just wrapping up a long day of detailing cars in my driveway when this woman I'd never seen before, yep, you guessed it, a full-on Karen, pulled up in this dusty SUV and waved me down. At first, I thought maybe she was just curious about my work or maybe looking to get a quote. But nope, she wasn't asking. She demanded that I stop what I was doing and wash her car for free . I honestly thought she was joking, so I laughed it off politely and told her I was done for the day. That's when everything shifted. Her face changed instantly. She started shouting, claiming I was being disrespectful and that I was legally required to provide service since I was on public property, which I wasn't. I tried to calmly explain that this was my private driveway and I had every right to say no. But instead of leaving, she stormed back to her car and pulled out her phone. Within seconds, she was on the line with 911, telling them I was refusing to cooperate and that she feared for her safety. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, all because I wouldn't wash her car. What happened next had even the officers raising their eyebrows, and you won't believe how it ended. So there I was, standing in my driveway, just trying to process what was happening. I kept thinking, is this really happening right now? This woman, who I didn't even know, had seriously just called 911 because I told her I wasn't going to wash her car. Meanwhile, she was pacing around like she was building a whole case against me. She kept glancing at me and talking loud enough for the neighbors to hear, saying things like, "He's threatening me," and "This man's being aggressive," when all I had done was stand there quietly with a microfiber towel still in my hand. A few of my neighbors peeked out their windows, and one even stepped outside to see what the noise was about. I could feel the tension rising, but I stayed calm. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. Still, I couldn't help but wonder how this would play out once the police showed up. Would they believe her? Would they think I was actually a threat? That's when I noticed something odd. The SUV she was driving didn't even have license plates, just a temporary paper tag that looked like it had been taped on. That got me thinking, was this even her car? Or was there something bigger going on here that I didn't know about yet? Something just wasn't adding up. As I stood there trying to keep my cool, the situation kept getting stranger. Karen was still on the phone with the 911 operator, throwing around words like assault, even though I hadn't taken a single step toward her. I could hear her claiming I was blocking her in and refusing to let her leave, which made zero sense. Her SUV wasn't even parked close to my car. That's when I started to realize this wasn't just about a car wash. This woman was trying to twist the story before help even arrived. Meanwhile, my neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, retired, super chill guy, walked over slowly and asked me quietly if everything was okay. I told him what had happened, and his eyes widened. He said he'd seen her drive by the neighborhood before but never stop. He offered to stick around, just in case things escalated. Honestly, I was glad he did. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Karen snapping a bunch of photos of my house, my car, even my mailbox. It felt invasive, like she was gathering evidence for something that didn't even exist. She even tried to get in my face and snap a picture of *me*, claiming she needed it for legal reasons. That's when I decided to start recording everything too, because at this point it felt like she was setting something up, and I wasn't sure what her endgame was. By the time the police finally pulled up, the street was way more crowded than usual. A few neighbors had come out onto their porches, some even recording with their phones. Karen immediately rushed over to the first officer like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She started crying, actual tears, saying I had threatened her, refused service, and was being hostile for no reason. I was honestly stunned at how quickly she flipped the whole thing, like she had practiced this routine before. One of the officers approached me calmly, asked for my side. I explained everything, how I was working on my own property, how she demanded a free wash, how I said no, and how she just wouldn't leave. I showed him the video I started recording. which luckily caught the part where she accused me of being a problem in the neighborhood. The officer nodded but didn't say much. I could tell they were trying to keep things neutral, but there was tension in the air. Then something really weird happened. The second officer ran the tag from her SUV and called for backup. He didn't say why, but his tone changed. I could hear bits and pieces over the radio. The second officer ran the tag from her SUV and called for backup. He didn't say why, but his tone changed. I could hear bits and pieces over the radio, something about the vehicle not matching the description on record. That's when Karen started pacing again, but this time she wasn't yelling. She looked nervous, really nervous. As soon as the second officer mentioned the tag not matching, Karen's whole vibe shifted. She stopped pacing and just froze for a second, like her brain was racing. Then, without warning, she tried to casually walk back to her SUV, acting like she was just going to sit and wait. But the officers weren't buying it. One of them followed her and asked her to step away from the vehicle while they finished checking things out. She got defensive real fast, saying stuff like, "This is harassment. I'm the one who called you," trying to flip the script all over again. That's when the twist came out of nowhere. One of the neighbors, someone I barely even talked to, called out, "Hey, that's not her car." I saw her get dropped off earlier by a different vehicle. Everyone went quiet. Even the officers paused. Karen turned and stared at him like she'd seen a ghost. The officer asked her directly, "Ma'am, is this your vehicle?" And for a moment, she just stood there, no answer. Then she blurted, "I was borrowing it from a friend," but her voice cracked, and her whole story started to unravel right there in front of us. The officers exchanged a look, and one of them reached for his radio again. That's when I knew, for sure, this wasn't just about a car wash anymore. Something much bigger was going on. The moment Karen said she was borrowing the SUV, things moved fast. One of the officers asked for the name of the friend she got the car from, and she mumbled something they clearly didn't recognize. Then he asked for ID, and that's when it all came crashing down. She claimed she left it at home, but the tension was thick. The backup unit had just arrived, and they weren't wasting time. They started doing a full walk-around of the SUV, flashlight in hand, checking VIN numbers, and even looking inside the car. A few minutes later, one of the officers pulled something out from the glove box and showed it to his partner, some paperwork that clearly didn't match her name. I couldn't hear all of it, but I caught the word "reported," and the tone of their voices had definitely changed. Then they told us straight up, the car was reported stolen. And just like that, Karen's whole "call the cops on him" stunt had completely backfired. She tried to talk her way out of it, blaming a friend, saying she didn't know, but it wasn't working. They placed her in cuffs while she kept yelling that I set her up, and that this was all some kind of trap. But here's the final twist. After everything calmed down, one of the officers quietly told me they'd had a few complaints recently about a woman matching her description going around different neighborhoods, trying to scam people pretending to need help or demanding services. She wasn't just being entitled, this was her asterisk thing asterisk, and somehow I'd ended up in the middle of it. After Karen was taken away, the street finally started to quiet down. A few neighbors stuck around, shaking their heads and talking about how wild the whole thing was. Some even thanked me for staying calm through it all, which honestly meant a lot. I was still trying to process it myself, how a normal afternoon detailing cars turned into a full-on scene with police, neighbors, and someone getting arrested for driving a stolen vehicle. I kept replaying everything in my head, especially how fast she flipped the situation and tried to use the police to intimidate me over something as simple as saying no to a free car wash. One of the officers stuck around to finish his report and asked me if I'd be willing to share my video in case it was needed later. I told him absolutely. He mentioned that their department had been looking into several similar reports in nearby neighborhoods. Same pattern, same type of behavior. Turns out I wasn't the first person she tried to manipulate, but I was probably the first to catch her mid-act with everything on video and a whole street full of witnesses. The next day, I got a call letting me know the SUV had been confirmed as stolen from a rental company 3 towns over. Apparently, Karen had never returned it and had been driving around like nothing happened. It was unreal, all because she wanted to force someone to clean it up like it was hers. Looking back, I'm glad I stayed calm and kept my phone recording. That one decision made a huge difference. It reminded me that sometimes doing the right thing, keeping your cool and standing your ground, can expose something much bigger than you'd ever expect. So if you ever find yourself dealing with a so-called Karen, just remember, protect yourself, speak your truth, and let the facts speak louder than the drama.